4 spine-chilling true horror stories from Fall, dark secrets revealed and sinister forces exposed. Jessica had no idea what she was stepping into when she took the late shift at the diner. As the leaves turned from vibrant green to rust-colored whispers in the chill of autumn, Maplewood transformed from a quaint little suburb to an unsettling ghost town filled with shadows. The little diner, typically a boisterous hub, held whispers of something darker on those late nights. Her co-workers leaned in close, speaking in hushed tones about disappearances, voices scraping against the silence like nails on a chalkboard. "Did you hear about the Hughes family?" one of them asked with devilish glee. "No one's seen them for months." The laughter that followed sent chills racing down Jessica's spine. Every night, muffled laughter echoed through the empty streets, chilling her to the bone as she made her way home under the flickering streetlights. Shadows danced in the periphery of her vision, too quick to catch. Something was wrong in Maplewood, and she felt it crawling over her skin, prickling her with unease. Mornings arrived, and the fog rolled in thick, smothering the world. Jessica hurriedly prepared Ben and Lily for school, fighting to quell the unease that nagged at her. As they stepped out into the misty world, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Each whisper of wind seemed to carry a warning. "Mommy, look at that," Ben said, pointing at something in the fog. But when Jessica turned, there was nothing, just endless gray swallowing the edges of reality. After school, Ben and Lily burst through the door, their voices filling their small, worn home with the innocent chatter of childhood. But sometimes, just for a fleeting moment, Jessica caught a subtle shift in their expressions, a shadow of fear lurking beneath their laughter. It gnawed at her, leaving her with an insatiable worry. They didn't just come home with school stories. They returned with heavy sighs, the weight of something unspoken simmering in the air. And then came the whispers about the Hughes family. Their home still stood at the end of Maplewood, an eerie shell of its former self, vines clawing at the cracked walls, drawing comparisons to something out of nightmares. "Don't go near that house. They say it's cursed," neighbors warned. But there was something about the Hughes house that drew Jessica in, like a moth to an impossible flame. Perhaps it was the haunting echoes of her own childhood. The tales paled in comparison to the actual steps she took toward its shadow. Each step filled with an incomprehensible pull. It felt as if the winds themselves were urging her to uncover what lay behind that rotting door. Just as she found the courage to face her fears, Thomas, the charismatic community leader, appeared at her side like a moth drawn to her flame. He offered to help with everything, fixing her car when it suddenly broke down, bringing over baked goods during late nights. Yet beneath that charm lay something insidious. Muffled voices in the night warned her to be vigilant. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The truths in her community twisted like vines, strangling the life out of her. She felt isolated, suffocated by the very neighborhood she thought she knew. As night fell and the air chilled, she noticed the whispers were growing louder, cryptic notes left at her door, fleeting shadows brushing too closely past her. It all threw her into a spiral of dread. Then it happened. The moment she woke to a whisper slicing through the darkness, a child's voice echoing in the silence. "Mommy, help me." Panic ignited deep in her gut. She knew then that she was not just up against time. She was racing against an unspeakable evil that threatened to drag her family into the depths of night. Who was it that lurked just outside her life, watching with hungry eyes? The next morning came too quickly. Jessica's heart raced as she poured a bowl of cereal for Ben and Lily. The muted morning light felt wrong, like a spotlight casting shadows where there shouldn't be any. She forced herself to smile, trying to dispel the heavy weight hovering around them. "Ready for school?" she asked brightly, but their eyes, wide and fearful, betrayed her. "Mommy, Can we not go today? Lily's voice trembled, a thin whisper almost drowned by the clatter of spoons. There's something not right, Ben added, his gaze flicking toward the window as if something beyond the glass was watching them back. Their dread sunk deep into Jessica's chest, pushing her anxiety toward a breaking point. It's just fog, honey, you'll be fine, she insisted, but her own voice shook with uncertainty. As she drove them to school, fog wrapped around them like a thick blanket, swallowing the road and consuming the familiar surroundings. The world outside the car felt altered, distorted. The trees stood like ancient sentinels, their branches reaching for something above. She gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, her mind racing back to the dreaded Hughes house. Had she made a mistake, considering approaching it? Suddenly a figure emerged from the mist, a child no older than Ben, standing alone on the side of the road. Dressed in tattered clothing, the kid was as pale as a ghost. Jessica slammed on the brakes, her heart pounding against her ribcage. "Oh my God!" she gasped. "Mom!" Ben shouted, eyes wide in terror. The child turned, a smile that didn't suit his face hanging on his lips. "Help me," he said, his voice carrying an unnatural echo. Panic surged within Jessica. There was something in that smile, something lurking beneath the surface, a predatory glint that sent a chill racing down her spine. "Keep your eyes forward," she shouted, foot hovering above the gas pedal, ready to flee. The figure remained still, its gaze locked on her, as if it could peel back layers of fear and drag her into its abyss. "We have to go," she screamed, and in that moment they burst forward, tires screeching against the asphalt, heart racing from the thrill of escape. After dropping the kids off at the school, an act of willpower that drained her, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling of dread. An insidious, nagging thought tried to gnaw its way into her mind. What if the Hughes family's disappearance was linked to that child? Adrenaline still coursed through her veins as she felt the urge to peel back the layers of secrecy in Maplewood. At the diner that evening, shadows sprawled across the booths as customers slowly filtered in. Thomas sat at the counter, his laugh echoing too loud against the stillness, belying the unease tangled in the air. She caught his eye, but this time, it wasn't warm. Something cold flashed in his gaze before he turned back to his conversation. Jessica clutched her phone, dread dwelling in her gut like lead. Before she could think, she typed a question into her search bar. Hughes family Maplewood disappearances. As the screen loaded, she felt the weight of 1,000 stares pressing on her shoulders. And then she saw it, a list of names. More than just the Hughes family. Each face blurred in her mind, yet one stood out. Another child, a little girl, with strikingly familiar features. Her breath hitched in her throat as she realized it was Lily's twin. She could feel their eyes again. Horrified waves of whispers and lingering shadows danced just beyond her line of sight. The air in the diner felt thicker now. The laughter echoed false. "You should be careful where you tread," a voice whispered as she blinked against the fear threatening to drown her. Her pulse raced. Why had she come back to Maplewood? What had she stumbled upon? As the fog rolled in deeper outside, she knew her fight was far from over. Something sinister was growing, and Jessica was right in its sights. What would happen when it finally emerged from the shadows? More importantly, would she have the strength to face what came next? The wind howled outside as Jessica stepped into the heavy silence of her home. The soft creak of the door closing felt like the final nail in a coffin. Dread twisted in her stomach, a palpable force urging her to flee. But where would she go? The whispers of the diner echoed in her mind, growing louder, more insistent. She sank into the couch, the fabric worn and familiar, but now somehow foreign. A flickering light caught her eye. The TV blinked to life on its own. Static buzzed, filling the space with a haunting hum. Jessica's heart pounded with each crackle. She reached for the remote, but the device felt heavy in her hand, as if warning her away. What if it showed her something she didn't want to see? Ignoring the urge to turn it off, she stared at the screen. Shapes danced in the static, shifting like phantoms. Pieces of her shattered mind crept into focus. The missing children, the fog, the child on the road. Every grain of static felt like a lost soul clawing its way toward her. Then something solid emerged. A face pale and hauntingly familiar. The little girl, her twin. Jessica gasped as recognition hit like a slap. "No, this isn't—" The TV crackled, the vision dissolving back into chaos. Panicking, she dug her nails into the cushions. Was this a warning, or was it a cruel twist of fate? She needed answers. The Hughes house resonated in her memory, a dark, silent specter beckoning her back. The thought of returning filled her with dread, but curiosity burnt even hotter. If anything could shed light on this family's disappearance, it was the Hughes house. She rose from the couch, heart racing as she mentally prepared for the confrontation ahead. It took everything to step back into the fog that dominated Maplewood. She drove toward the house, the weight of fear thickening the air around her. The stillness outside was almost deafening, punctuated only by her rapid breaths and the crunch of gravel under tires. Time seemed to stretch and bend, each second full of promise or foreboding. As she parked, shadows stretched long across the yard, twisting in ways that defied logic. The house loomed in front of her, its windows dark and empty like sunken eyes. She hesitated on the doorstep, energy crackling in the air like electricity. Gathering her resolve, she knocked. The sound echoed unnaturally, breaking the silence like shattering glass. A wave of cold washed over her. Was she ready for whatever lay beyond this threshold? Moments ticked by in dread-filled silence until she thought about leaving. Just as she turned to go, the door creaked open, gaping wide like a dark mouth ready to consume her. A figure stood framed in the doorway, too tall and too still. It was a man, face obscured by shadows, and yet there was an unsettling familiarity in the way he leaned against the frame. "What did you come here for?" he asked, voice low and gravelly, tinged with an unsettling echo that brought back the boy's haunting plea from the road. Jessica's heart raced, pulse thundering in her ears. She was thrown back into a memory, one she couldn't fully grasp. Had this man known Lily and Ben? Did he hold the key to the dark secrets? "Please, I need to understand. I have to know what happened to the children," she whispered, her voice shaking. The figure stepped forward and the dim light illuminated his face, a face that faded in and out of focus. Was it him? The man's smile twisted unnaturally, not a hint of kindness anywhere in it. "It's not safe to know," he whispered, a clue wrapped in a warning. Jessica's breath quickened as the air around her thickened. Maybe confronting this man was a mistake, or perhaps the beginning of uncovering unimaginable truths. With the fog swirling behind her, what other revelations lurked just beyond reach? As the door creaked shut behind him, darkness pressed in, and the chilling question burned in her mind. What would she find if she dared to step inside? The darkness engulfed Jessica as the door closed, the world outside the Hughes house falling away like a forgotten dream. Inside, shadows danced along the walls, flickering as if alive, a macabre ballet that drew her deeper into the unknown. "Where are the children?" she whispered, barely daring to disturb the air around her. The man's absence felt like an ice storm, chilling her to the bone. She took a step inside, foot sinking into the thick carpet that held years of grief and memory beneath its surface. Suddenly, the front door slammed shut, echoing like a gunshot. Heart racing, she spun around, panic clawing at her throat. There was no way back now. She was trapped within the bowels of this house that seemed to breathe heavily, tugging at her senses with its oppressive weight. "Hello," she called, each syllable trembling. The house remained mute, absorbing her dread, returning it tenfold. She turned to the living room, following the strange pull. Dust motes danced in the faint light, swirling like trapped souls. As she approached an old family photo hanging crookedly on the wall, her breath hitched. A smile frozen in time. Ben's face beamed back at her alongside Lily, their joy piercing through her heart like a dagger. "Why?" Jessica murmured. "What happened to you?" Just then, a soft giggle echoed from the far end of the hallway. It was high-pitched and childlike, sending a shiver down her spine. She stiffened, every instinct screaming at her to run, to hide. But the pull was stronger. Trembling but determined, she pressed forward, each step sounding like thunder in her ears. The hallway stretched on impossibly long, shadows creeping along the wallpaper that seemed to watch her move. The giggling grew louder, morphing into unsettling whispers that tickled her ears. "Come play with us. Come play." Her heart thundered as she reached a door at the end of the corridor, painted a ghostly blue and slightly ajar. It beckoned her, tempting her with the promise of answers. She peered inside and gasped. Toys littered the floor, untouched but dusty. The musty smell of forgotten childhood hung heavy in the air. "Jessica!" a voice called, now more insistent. Her name echoed like the tolling of a bell, each ring deeper than the last. A chill slithered down her spine. She was no longer alone. Jessica stepped in, the door creaking ominously behind her before it slammed shut again. The sound triggered a memory, a warning from the diner, the whispers, the children. And there, in the corner, a small figure stood facing the wall, another child in identical clothes to Lily. The dim light illuminated a cascade of dark hair. "Lily," she called out, her voice barely a whisper. The figure's head whipped around, but the face was blurred, smeared like wet paint. Jessica's heart raced. It was not her sister. It was something else. "Come play," the figure shrieked, the voice twisting in a haunting echo. Everything started to spin as the walls trembled, shadows licking at the edges of her vision. The air thickened with terror, and Jessica's mind twisted in confusion. There was no safe escape, no answers. That familiar helium laugh mixing with high-pitched cries filled her head. "Help us!" the figure shrieked. And Jessica felt it, the draw of despair pulling at her heart like an anchor. In that moment she understood. This wasn't just a search for truth, it was a trap. The walls shifted, the room closing in, a gaping maw ready to consume her. Just as the darkness closed, she caught one last glimpse of the shadowed doorway behind her. If she dared to escape, would the children help her, or was this the moment they all became lost? The chilling uncertainty clawed at her throat, marking the beginning of a perilous choice. "Stay and play," came the echo. What would she choose? Jessica stumbled backward, the room spinning wildly. The childlike figure loomed closer, its blurred features twisted into a nightmarish grin, all teeth and malice. The air was electric, crackling with a sinister energy that made her pulse race. Her mind screamed at her to get out, but her feet felt rooted to the floor, frozen in dread. "Play with us," it hissed. And as the words escaped its mouth, Jessica felt the room pulse as if the very walls were alive, breathing in her fear. She willed herself to turn, to run, but all she could do was stare, transfixed by the horror unfolding. Then from the depths of her panic, Jessica heard another voice, a desperate whisper, "Help us." It came from everywhere and nowhere, wrapping around her like a frigid fog. It seemed to come from beneath the floor, a soft lament that felt etched deep into the very wood. It reached for her, beckoning her with promises of salvation while dragging deep despair through her veins. "Ben? Lily?" The name slipped from her lips, a feeble prayer against the encroaching darkness. In that moment of naming, she realized the blurred figure wasn't alone. More shapes emerged from the shadows, slowly materializing from the gloom, each one a child, their faces a grotesque display of innocence corrupted. They shuffled forward, their limbs elongated and jerky in a mockery of youth, and the giggling blended into a cacophony of lost childhoods. "Play with us forever," they crooned, voices intertwining in a haunting melody that sent shivers down her spine. Jessica's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her ears, a heady chorus of terror. She stumbled for the doorway, hands flailing as she sought something solid to grasp, the smooth edge of the doorframe. It pushed back against her fingers, and she paused. What was waiting on the other side? Did she dare leave this room? The children's faces twisted in their grotesque playfulness, eyes glimmering with an unnatural hunger. "Don't go. We like you," they squealed, their voices an unholy blend of delight and despair. Their laughter morphed into a screech that felt like ice scraping against her skull. "No!" Jessica shouted, the word tearing from her throat as she found her voice amidst the turmoil. She managed to catch a glimpse beyond the door, blackness rippling, sharp edges blurring in her vision like the cusp of reality fraying at the seams. And then, like a dam bursting, clarity flashed through her head. She was the outsider in this world, a lone thread caught in a sinister tapestry of despair woven by these lost souls. They were seeking something she had. Memories? Trust? Love? The shadows inched toward her, and she felt the deep, aching pull of their need. "Join us," they rasped, their plea infectious, rusty hooks digging into her will. But she was still herself, wasn't she? She took a desperate step toward the door, her breath quickening as adrenaline surged through her veins. "Let me go," she screamed. At that moment, something snapped. The floor groaned, and with a deafening crash, the ceiling above her splintered, dust raining down like ashes from a fire long extinguished. The shadows recoiled, the children shrieked, and Jessica dashed for the openness of the doorway, her heart pounding hope and desperation. As she flung herself into the corridor, the echoes followed, a haunting chant of a game she refused to play. The house quaked beneath her feet, shaking loose secrets that begged to be heard. But as she ran, a chilling realization gripped her. This wasn't just a battle for her escape. It was a fight against something dark, a being that had claimed so many before her. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. With every step, the house seemed to wail in protest, its walls alive with malevolence trying to keep her within. Yet, as Jessica looked back one last time at the door from which she just fled, a voice echoed down the corridor, dripping with malice and urgency. "You'll be back. They always come back." What had withdrawn promised her, and could she ever truly escape its insidious grip? Jessica sprinted down the corridor, breathless, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drummer urging her to flee. The shadows swirled, hungrily reaching for her, their whispers now a cacophony of pleas that clawed at her sanity. "Please, stay. Don't leave," echoed against the damp walls, each word winding tighter around her throat. She turned a corner and skidded to a stop in front of a closed door, her feet almost betraying her sanity again. This door looked different. It was older, the paint peeling like dried skin, and her fingers tingled with an inexplicable urge to push it open. But the dark energy oozing from the cracks made her recoil. She couldn't shake the nagging queasiness settling in her stomach. What if something even worse waited behind it? "Just go," she told herself, a mantra against the madness that threatened to engulf her. She bolted past the door into the unknown, but a flicker of movement in her periphery made her pause. A shadow slithered across the floor, coiling around her ankle before she could react. Panic surged through her as she yanked her foot free, but the darkness didn't relent, shifting and writhing like a living entity. "Help us. We're trapped." The voices grew louder, turning into a tumultuous roar that drowned out her thoughts. "Ben!" The name ripped from her throat. In the chaos, hope sparked. Maybe if she could find her brother, she could break this sinister bond. But the halls twisted at her feet, the walls curling in like the sinister smile of a predator. Glancing back, she saw the children had spilled from the doorway, their grotesque forms now united. A swarm of aberrant innocents chasing her through the dark hallways. Their eyes glowed eerily, and they stretched their arms toward her, a desperate, unified front against her escape. They no longer called out pleas. Instead, their voices filled with a chilling glee that reverberated like a horror show. "Play with us, forever!" The distorted ring echoed off the walls, swallowing her resolve and tugging at something deep within her. An internal struggle twisted inside her gut. Could she truly resist their invitation? "Never!" she screamed, grounding herself in the reality of her choices. Racing forward, she found another door at the end of the hall. Without thinking, she threw it open and stumbled into another room. The air thickened, a pause caught in time, a jarring silence fell over her like a dim shroud. And then she saw it, a reflection in a cracked mirror opposite her. The image wasn't hers, it was of Ben, distorted and slack, eyes wide in fear and pleading. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Jessica froze as realization gripped her, Wherever he was trapped in this hell alongside her. "Ben!" she called, rushing toward the mirror, panic coursing through her veins as it pulsed with energy. Suddenly the glass rippled like water, distorting further. A horrible noise cracked through the quiet, a rending sound that made her heart lurch. The children were closing in, their laughter morphing into shrieks of rage as they realized she wouldn't join them. "You can't leave us!" they screamed. Jessica turned back, fire igniting within her. She wouldn't be another lost soul. "Leave me alone," she shouted, feeling a warmth swell in her chest. Just as she gathered the last remnants of her courage, a blinding light burst from the mirror, a wave crashing over her senses. She lunged. Would it take her to Ben or trap her forever? The light enveloped her completely, and in that moment realization struck. She wasn't alone in this. With her memories swirling within the light, a new voice washed over her. Help is never far. Was the way out truly within reach? Or were there darker secrets waiting to be uncovered? The shadows swarmed closer, ready to drag her back into the depths. What price would she pay to learn the truth? The light swallowed Jessica, wrapping her in a shimmering cocoon that felt both strange and familiar. For a moment it was all-consuming, a dizzying whirlpool of memories and emotions. As she pushed through its depths, a horrible thought nagged at her. What if this light was just another trick, another facade to keep her from the truth? Suddenly she emerged on the other side, gasping for breath. The room around her was eerily bright, every corner shimmering with a soft luminescence, yet it felt wrong. The surface of everything, the floor, the walls, even the ceiling, had a glass-like sheen, reflecting her troubled face. But where was Ben? "Ben!" she cried, her voice echoing unnaturally against the glossy surfaces. The silence burrowed deep in her stomach, a black hole of dread. The children's laughter had stopped, replaced by a suffocating stillness, as if the world held its breath. Jessica turned in circles, glancing at her distorted reflection in the floor where her shadow danced freely, unlike the black figures that had chased her. It was a mockery. She stepped further in, the air thicker here, almost sentient, pressing against her skin. As she moved, the reflections began shifting, morphing into images of Ben, his laughter at their last birthday party, the way he'd always been her protector. Each memory ignited a flicker of hope, a gasping flame that fought against the gnawing darkness. But those memories twisted, becoming nightmarish flashes, her brother screaming, trapped, surrounded by the same twisted shadows that hunted her. "Help me!" His voice echoed, scraping against the walls, coming from somewhere beyond the glimmering surface. "Where are you?" She sprinted toward the nearest wall, pressing her palms against the glass. The surface rippled like water. "Ben!" The moment she called out, the tranquil atmosphere shattered. Something lunged at her from the reflection, a dark figure slithering out with grotesque speed. Jessica stumbled back, crashing against the reflective surface, but she was solid, utterly unyielding. She frantically scanned the ominous space. What was this place? The shadow had form now but looked distorted, as if trapped between worlds. It flickered, sometimes an unnerving grin, sometimes a contorted scream. It reached for her, its blackened hands stretching out, seemingly desperate for connection. "Join us!" it begged in a voice that twisted her stomach. "No!" she shouted, feeling a wave of bile rise in her throat. "I won't!" The floor beneath her trembled with an echo of laughter, a dreadful reminder of the children who had pursued her. All at once, their glee morphed into shrill cries. "You belong here, Jessica," they hissed in unison, their hands clawing at the edges of the glass, their faces a hastened blur. Setting her jaw, Jessica gauged her surroundings. The mirrored reflections blurred between reality and nightmare, twisting her path further into chaos. If I can find the mirror. If I reach for Ben. Just as she turned, drawn to another mirror flanking the empty space, the glass erupted, shards exploding outward, each piece a screaming face, each reflection containing terror that threatened to consume her. Time froze, and she felt an electric pulse surge through her, igniting every nerve. Help is never far, was echoing again, but twisted with that call came a sickening realization. Could the voice be deceiving her? Jessica collected herself, forcing her legs to move as the children's laughter surged back, mingled now with sinister whispers. Find the truth, or lose everything, they said, a countdown to her own demise. Fear reignited. The final revelation loomed near, tantalizing, dark, and rage ignited her spirit. She bolted forward again, heart racing, fighting against the darkness closing in. What secrets awaited her? What price would she truly pay to find Ben? As the wall of shadows advanced, she lunged toward the next mirror, her desperate reach echoing through the vibrancy of distorted memories and terror. Would she emerge united with her brother or bound forever in a nightmare? The mirror shimmered just ahead, pulsating with an eerie glow that seemed to beckon Jessica closer. She felt its pull, that familiar sensation washing over her, whispering empty promises. Just a step, just a touch. The children's voices twisted around her, rhythmic and mocking, a cacophony of echoing laughter and cries. Jessica hesitated, heart pounding like a drum in her throat. Were those really memories, or just surgical tricks played by the shadows lurking in the corners? The dark figure still stalked her, flickering in and out of sight, and she could feel its gaze boring into her back. With a deep breath, she surged forward. "Ben, I'm coming." Her voice cracked, desperate and real. The mirror's surface almost melted as she reached out. The moment her fingers touched the cool glass, the world around her pulled apart like frayed string. She stumbled through, careening into a swirling void of darkness. Suddenly, the air chilled, biting and sharp. And then, silence. She landed hard on a cold stone floor. The softness of her previous glowing world was gone, replaced by a palpable sense of dread. Shadows pooled, thick and cloying as Jessica forced herself to breathe. The scent of damp earth filled her nostrils, and she'd never felt more alone. She climbed to her feet, pain shooting through her knees. "Ben!" she cried out again, searching the enclosure that now surrounded her, weak light flickering from lanterns hanging at odd angles on the walls. Rusted chains dangled from the ceiling. The confines felt like a prison. In a far corner she saw movement, a figure curling in and out of shadows. Jessica squinted, heart racing again, as the air trembled with a familiar resonance. "Help me," it was his voice, dragged through gravel, slowly bleeding urgency and despair. "Jessica!" Her heart leapt, threading through her anxieties like a needle, but it was instantly countered by chilling doubt. "Is it really you?" she murmured, teeth clenching as she fought against the whispering shadows in her mind. "Please, I'm here." The voice echoed back, layered with deception, leaving her on edge. She hesitated, remembering the darkness stalking her from the other side, its hunger palpable. "Ben!" She pushed forward, her heartbeat a frantic drum as she crossed the room. Each step felt weighted with fear, and as she approached the shadows, drawing closer, she saw a silhouette emerging. But as it stepped into the light, it was not Ben, but a twisted reflection, an ominous grin stretching wider than natural, eyes blackened and deep. "No, stay away!" The creature lunged, arms outstretched, long and skeletal, its distorted face reeking of desperation. "Join us!" Its voice melded with the wails of the children, lost and tormented. Jessica ducked, adrenaline pumping as she sidestepped the advancing horror. She scrambled against the cold, hard walls, searching for anything, a way out, a sign, her brother's voice rising in her head like a mantra. "Jessica!" Each time the call echoed, it lost clarity, fading into the jagged noise of mockery around her. "Keep him close!" clutched in her mind, anguished and clear. She bolted toward a doorway in the shadows, praying it would lead her back, praying she would not lose him forever. The darkness twisted, eager to drag her down, but she surged through, not focused on the pain and hunger gnawing at her hope. And as the door slammed shut behind her, she found herself back in the luminous, glassy room. A trap. What? No! The surface rippled again, but this time she could see it clearly. Darkness lived here, feeding on her fear. That's when a familiar silhouette darted past, and she caught a glimpse of his face flashing in reflection, now pale and desperate. "Help me!" This time it was different. This cry cut deeper, more haunting. Where was her brother? Jessica's mind raced. Would she dare face the truth lurking between the flickering images and shattered reflections? Could uncovering the darkness save them both? The shadows enveloped her again, squeezing tight, whispering secrets meant to drown her reason. She had to make a choice. But as she stood there, terrified, the laughter from the walls became more pronounced, a chilling countdown that sent icy fingers crawling down her spine. Would she unlock the door to salvation, or seal her fate in despair? What lay waiting in the shadows, beneath the shimmering surface? Jessica's breath hitched in her throat as the laughter rose to a fever pitch, echoing off the stone walls. It felt like a curtain tightening around her, smothering the last flickers of hope. She pressed her back against the mirror, feeling its icy surface beneath her palm, still vibrating with dark energy. "Ben!" she shouted again, voice cracking, desperation clawing at her insides. "Where are you?" Silence answered, thick and oppressive, swallowing her words whole. The laughter morphed into a chorus of whispers that slithered into her ears, morphing the words into a chilling invitation, an embrace into the darkness. Taking a step back from the mirror, Jessica felt her heartbeat hammering against her ribs. The creature loomed near, its eyes glinting with predatory excitement, curling and uncoiling like smoke around her. Although she couldn't clearly see it in the shadows, she sensed its grin, stretching wider and wider, sharpening at the edges like cruel teeth. "Join us. End the suffering," it implored, its voice now a haunting melody woven with the echoes of the children's lost laughter. "No?" Jessica's defiance surged through her. Pain ignited in her fists as she struck the glass, desperate to shatter the illusion imprisoning her. But the mirror merely rippled, a mocking reflection of her torment. It felt solid yet ephemeral, like her very will was being tested. She glared at the darkness coiling around her, pushing herself into a run, deeper into the unknown depths of the chamber. A part of her screamed to turn back, to find a way out, but the other half was compelled to seek the truth that lay simmering just beneath the surface. "Ben!" she called once more as she stumbled into a dimly lit corridor. The air weighed heavy, almost viscous, constricting her throat with its density. Flickering lanterns cast dancing shadows that reached for her like grasping hands, leaving her disoriented. More whispers. They grew limbs in her imagination, pressing on her skin as if to drag her under. What if keeping Ben close meant confronting the very thing stalking them? With a shuddering breath, she felt for the lanterns, hoping they shared some light in this abyss. As her fingers grazed against the cool metal, an eerie glow radiated against the wall, a symbol etched in faded gold. "Please." It blazed for a heartbeat. She leaned closer, deciphering the letters. They curled and twisted, forming words that made her pulse race, words of despair and anguish that pressed against her mind, spilling memories she never knew she had. Jessica's eyes widened. It read, "Only those bound by blood can break the chains of fear." Chains. It pierced her heart, snapping it against a memory she'd buried deep. They had been connected, tethered by nightmares only she could remember. She understood now that darkness was feeding on their bond, manipulating it, twisting it into something grotesque. Could she save him without facing that horror? She turned sharply, her decision made. With renewed force, she made her way back to the entrance she had just fled. The whispers escalated, shrill and frenzied, clawing at the edges of her sanity. As she neared the mirror once more, the pulse of the light intensified. Every fiber in her being screamed to flee, but she could almost hear Ben's voice urging her forward. "Jessica." It sounded closer now. Despair and hope danced together inside her. She stepped up to the surface, her fingers trembling as she poised them over the glass, ready to confront the chaos within. "Ben!" she shouted, and the world around her trembled. Just as she was about to press her palm against the mirror, darkness surged, spilling into her vision. A rush of movement, a shadow crossing the threshold of her peripheral vision. Was it the creature? Or Ben? The entity grinned wider, its eyes gleaming with sinister delight, as if it could sense her resolve. "Join us," it taunted, a promise and a threat all at once. Jessica clenched her jaw, preparing herself. She had to know the truth, but was she ready to pay the price? As shadows enveloped her, the mirror beckoned once more, revealing flickers of light that felt achingly familiar. Would she step through and face what waited? Could she confront the darkness and find her brother? Or would she be lost forever? The air thickened with desperation as she lingered on the edge of the unknown. What was waiting for her on the other side of that reflective surface? And as she stood there, teetering between hope and despair, a piercing scream erupted from the shadows behind her, shattering the silence. "Help me!" Jessica's heart stopped, the scream echoing like a death knell. It was Ben. He was in there, lost, desperate, and she couldn't afford to waste another moment. Drawing a breath deep into her lungs, she pushed through the terror gripping her chest, fighting every instinct urging her to flee. "Ben!" she shouted, her voice reverberating through the chamber. "Hold on! I'm coming!" With steeled determination, she placed her hands against the mirror's cool surface. The moment her skin made contact, images burst forth. Memories, shadows, and the breath of laughter mixed with sorrow swirled around her, shifting her perceptions like a tempest. She could see a distorted reflection of Ben struggling against shadowy hands, faces of the lost children surrounding him, their eyes pleading, expressions twisted by hopelessness. "Help us!" they shrieked together, a horrifying chant that set her skin crawling. "No!" Jessica cried, locking eyes with her brother's fear-stricken face. "I won't let this happen!" Desperation clawed at her throat, warring against the fear that sought to drag her under. She pressed harder into the mirror, her resolve a blazing fire in the depths of darkness. With every ounce of strength, she felt the mirror pulse. Each beat resonated with her heartbeat, an echoing reminder of her connection to Ben. The darkness seethed, the laughter turning shrill and frantic, pounding against her senses like a storm. "Join us," it begged, trying to siphon her courage and drown her in horror. "Never!" Jessica shouted, and with that, she reached deep within herself, plucking the threads of her courage and binding them to the love for her brother. "We are family. You can't take him." The mirror began to crack, fissures spiraling outward, revealing glimpses of light and warmth on the other side. With one final push, she thrust her hand through the glassy surface. A surge of energy rippled through her as the darkness roared, twisting and boiling like a cauldron of rage and despair. But she wouldn't pull back. She wouldn't falter. She stretched her fingers toward Ben, ready to bridge that chasm between shadow and light. "Take my hand," she cried. Time slowed as they reached across the divide, the warmth of her touch settling over him like a blanket on a cold night. Their fingers brushed, and in that moment, the world around them shattered in a blinding flash. The screams faded, replaced with a stunning brilliance. Jessica felt the weight of chains fall from her shoulders, and she gasped, pulling Ben into an embrace. He was there, solid and real, his warmth flooding her with an overwhelming sense of relief. The shadows recoiled, hungrily trailing into the cracks of the mirror, shrieking in futility as they disappeared into the void. "Jessica, I thought I lost you," Ben cried, trembling, relief washing over his features. "Never! I'd never leave you," she said fiercely, her heart swelling as she looked down at the shapes that twisted away. As they staggered back, the chamber melted around them, textures of horror slipping away to reveal the familiar warmth of home. Fog rolled outside the windows, but it felt different now, less suffocating, almost soft, as if the world had exhaled a great sigh of relief. They were free. Tucking Ben tightly under her arm, they ventured through the door. The fears that had once clawed at Jessica's heart now felt distant. She reunited with her children. Warmth filled her home again, the shadows that had loomed heavy in Maplewood lifting at last. Her heart swelled with gratitude as she felt their tiny hands slip into hers after a long, uncertain evening. The whispers of the children lingered in her mind, but this time they were no longer empty echoes. She had faced them, recognized their sorrow, and emerged stronger on the other side. "Mommy, are we safe?" Lily asked, eyes wide with concern as they settled back into the cozy chaos of their home. "Yes, sweetie. Always safe. The darkness can't touch us anymore," Jessica replied, giving their small hands an extra squeeze, her voice steady. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maplewood exhaled along with them. A flicker of hope reinstating its vibrancy, turned from fear to love. Jessica marveled at how fleeting, yet intricate life could be. They had survived, not just against the shadows but against despair. The whispers lingered outside, but they were mere memories now, peeling away with the night. She gathered them into her arms. Everything felt right. For Maplewood, for the lost. She understood now. Together, strong. This was how love conquered the deepest fears. As the day turned to night, a soft breeze brushed past the windows, carrying scents of autumn and promise through the air. A sense of closure enveloped them, painful memories fading under the embrace of light. And within that beautiful chaos, Jessica knew a gentle truth. Family is the brightest light against the darkest shadows, and that was the beginning of a new chapter, untainted by darkness, woven with hope and love. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next incredible stories that will chill you to the bone. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the feed alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how Jessica and Ben face the darkness. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel through every click. Let's keep this journey going together.